Hello and welcome to SaltWire today for Thursday, April 20th. I'm your host, Kate Walker. William Sandeson has been sentenced to serve 15 years in prison until he is eligible to apply for parole in connection to the 2015 killing of Taylor Sampson. The nearly 8 years he's been on remand is counted in those 15 years. The judge made his ruling in Supreme Court today after victim impact statements were read and the juror recommendations about how long he should be in prison before being eligible for parole were taken into account. The sentencing hearing was originally scheduled for 2 days.
With respect to the period of parole eligibility, it is the determination of the court that William Michael Sandeson must serve a minimum period of 15 years before being eligible to apply for parole. I have concluded on all of the facts and submissions that this period is the proper expression of the relevant law and principles, including those drawn from our Court of Appeal in R v. Hawkins. As noted in Hawkins, parole is only a possibility for this offense.
It's clear that the justice has considered all of the purposes and principles of sentencing and concluded what he did based on an assessment of the facts, based on an assessment of case law and precedent. Obviously, the Crown was hoping for a period of 22 years, which is why we had asked for that position. Certainly, Justice Chipman gave this ample consideration.
Sandeson was convicted of second-degree murder this February. In 2017, Sandeson was originally tried and convicted of first-degree murder, but he successfully appealed and a second trial was ordered. The new one began this January, where a jury ultimately found him guilty of second-degree murder, which carries a mandatory life sentence in prison. Sandeson killed fellow Dal Med student Sampson during a drug deal gone wrong on Henry Street in Halifax in 2015. The range for second-degree murder is a minimum sentence of 10 years to a maximum of 25. Today marks day 2 of the Public Service Alliance of Canada strike. Here's a look at some of the PSAC workers picketing in front of the Bedford Institute of Oceanography on the second day of the national strike. Hundreds of thousands of workers hit the picket lines across Canada yesterday, calling for better wages and for the government to step in with a fair offer. Members working for Treasury Board and Canada Revenue Agency announced their strike action Tuesday. The strike is expected to put a halt to services and a delay to tax season. In rural communities, water can become an issue in the summer when the wells run dry. Property owners in Musquodoboit Harbour now have a community-built solution for their water woes, but they're encountering delays and pushback from HRM staff. SaltWire's Jen Taplin has the details.
By August, many water wells in Musquodoboit Harbour run dry. There's no municipal water system here, and the HRM has been distributing bottled water during late summer droughts. Community members are working on a solution, a seasonal, solar-powered pump house behind an HRM ball field.
The project is important to the community because we've witnessed in the last several summers that we've experienced a severe drought where people's dug wells go dry, and people on low incomes really can't afford bottled water.
Community members secured federal grants, drilled a well with HRM's permission, and high school students built the pump house. All they need is for HRM to lease them a 100-square-foot section of land, but city staff are reluctant due to legal risks.
HRM has been very slow in their response. We've sent numerous emails and not received a response. It's only when we get radical that they respond.
They pleaded their case to a community council in March, which voted for a staff report on the issue. The group said they'll move forward with the project this spring, even if HRM doesn't lease them the land.
We'd really like to have the project open by this summer. People are already experiencing dry wells in April, which is unheard of in the time that I've lived here.
The community group is hoping to get the final pieces in place to have it operating in May. In Musquodoboit Harbour, I'm Jen Taplin for the SaltWire Network.
One couple in Hatchet Lake was taken by surprise when they came to find 15 rabbits abandoned at the end of their driveway. They've now taken them to the Dartmouth SPCA. Their security cameras show this week that someone dropped them off at 10 p.m. 2 adult rabbits in a dog carrier, another in a cat carrier, one in a box, and 11 babies in a plastic tote with a blanket over them. It turns out the wife's sister used to live in the home and ran a bunny rescue, but it hasn't operated in 3 years. But the fact that they left them at the end of a long driveway with no notice was still very strange. It was also clear that the bunnies had not been taken care of. Some of the rabbits had matted fur and the babies were covered in their own urine and feces. Animal control was called and the rabbits were picked up and taken to the SPCA. There were worries for the rabbits who spent 9 hours overnight in a rural area that often sees raccoons, foxes, and coyotes. The SPCA is investigating and has released video of the vehicle in hopes of tracking down the people who left the animals. Derek Bona, a chef from Eastern Passage, has long struggled with weight issues. An incident around New Year's made him realize that he finally had to do something about his weight, which was nearing 600 pounds. Since then, he's been documenting his journey back to health, which includes diet and exercise, on Twitter. The support he's received from far and wide has been humbling, and people from across the globe have reached out to him, even Arnold Schwarzenegger.
My name's Derek Bona. I'm a 41-year-old chef from Eastern Passage, a chef at the QE2 hospital. I've been a bigger guy my whole life, struggled with mentally, physically, and emotionally with my weight. It caused me a lot of problems. I decided in January to take a chance and bet on myself for health-wise. As a chef, you already fell in love with food, and you know the proper food you should be eating, but this industry is a real tough one, and sometimes you just don't always take the time for yourself, and you work long hours, you come home, you binge eat, you go to bed, and then you wake up and do the exact same thing, and you don't have any time off really with your family and loved ones. Holidays, forget about it. I had no idea how much I weighed. I had a rough estimate, but I said, you know what, I'm just going to concentrate on myself, do one thing, make one change. I decided to start eating healthier, eating proper. The first couple of weeks started going good, but I didn't have that reassurance of a number. I bought a scale off Amazon, and it was a scale used for packaging. Companies use it for packaging to send out their product. At that point, I weighed 561 pounds. I knew I had already lost quite a substantial amount of weight in those 2 weeks. So far, I'm down 60 pounds as of last Saturday. I only really use Twitter for following my Blue Jays and keeping up on local trends around the province, but hearing other people's stories that I have no clue who they are, just to say, you know, your story's inspiring, I'm in the same position, and the realization, I'm happy now that I did put it out. We should talk about our feelings. If you need help, reach out. We always say we're here for other people, but I wasn't here for myself. Hopefully it opens some doors for people to make better decisions to talk about how they feel, and it certainly helped me.
It's time now for a glimpse of today's Thinking Out Loud with Sheldon McLeod. Today, Sheldon is speaking with Deputy Auditor General Michael McPhee.
I'm wondering what the legislation says. What power or authority do you have other than releasing a report, making it public, and saying, here are the deficiencies, here are the shortcomings?
We have very broad, powerful access provisions within our legislation to effectively meet the mandate of being the auditor of government. With that, it enables us to do the work that we need to do to confidently conclude on the questions that we ask within our audits. We then table our reports, and it's at that point where we essentially let the accountability continue. We have no authority to demand implementation of recommendations. It essentially ends at the point of us tabling a report. However, this follow-up report and exercise that we do every year is a key accountability of to close the loop, if you will, after an audit has been tabled. So this is why we continue to assess implementation for 3 years after the clock starts ticking after 2 years, if that makes sense.
And for Sheldon's full conversation, head to the opinion section of SaltWire.com. Time now for the Atlantic Sports Wire, presented by Scott Squires.
The Truro Tide are a brand new team in the Eastern Canadian Basketball League, and Armand Benford is one of the players on the undefeated Tide. Armand, thanks for joining us. You're originally from Chicago, Illinois, so tell me a little bit about your early days playing basketball in Chicago.
Nice to meet you. Back in Chicago, being in Chicago, trying to stay out of trouble, playing sports was like the best thing to do. Of course, you hear all type of things about Chicago, but Chicago is a beautiful city. Basketball is one of the meccas out in Chicago. And just growing up, everything was competitive. I went to the Simeon Career Academy, which like with Derrick Rose, Jabari Parker went to, all those guys. We got a couple players in the league, and it just builds a competitive spirit just so I can like compete. And it when you want to compete, it make you want to go further and further and further with the game. So with that being said, I just wanted to keep seeing how far basketball can take me, try to see if I can be a professional with it. I ended up going to John A. Logan in Carterville, then went to a D2, and I'm just trying to keep this thing going for real.
For my full conversation with Armand, you can visit the video tab at saltwire.com and also our SaltWire YouTube channel. In Halifax, I'm Scott Squires for the Atlantic Sports Wire.
Thank you, Scott. On to weather now to see what's coming up in the forecast. We're going to check in now with our weather specialist, Alistair Alders.
Thanks, Kate. It was another great April day here in Halifax under a mix of sun and cloud. It was a bit breezy, but temperatures did climb into the low teens. And really, we are looking at much the same as we go over the next several days here in HRM. This evening, we'll have partly cloudy skies and the temperature near 7 degrees, and a bit chilly walking out the door tomorrow morning near 3 degrees, but mainly sunny. And mainly sunny throughout the day tomorrow. However, I think in the afternoon, we'll likely have a few high clouds rolling through. The temperature climbs up to 12 degrees for the afternoon high with northwest winds 20 kilometers per hour. Keep in mind that the UV index also gets high around this time of year. Tomorrow will be near 6 or 7. We will continue to have this great stretch of weather continue right through the upcoming weekend with a mix of sun and cloud. Temperatures will be in the teens thanks to a northerly flow. The next sign of any rain won't be until the middle of next week, and even then it's only a bit of showers, so really not a whole lot of rain to talk about in the upcoming forecast. So really great weather to spend some time outdoors, perhaps on a trail like this one. Kate.
Thank you, Alistair. That's all for now. For more extended video and full online articles, stay tuned to saltwire.com. And you can find us on social media. I'm your host, Kate Walker. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.